Imagine this. You wake up one morning and never fall asleep again. Not because of insomnia or stress, but because your body simply doesn't need sleep anymore. At first, it sounds like a superpower. More time to work, to create, to live, but soon, reality starts to slip. Time stretches. You forget things. You see shadows moving that aren't really there. And then, your brain turns against you. So, what would happen if you never slept again? And could science ever eliminate the need for sleep altogether? Let's find out. If you're curious about the limits of the human body and mind, and you want to explore the strange corners of science, hit that subscribe button. And hey, leave us a comment with the weirdest dream you've ever had, because after this, you might start appreciating those dreams a lot more. Sleep is one of the great paradoxes of biology. It leaves us vulnerable. It consumes a third of our lives, and yet we can't survive without it. From insects to elephants, nearly every animal species sleeps. Even dolphins, who need to surface for air, have adapted to let half their brain sleep at a time while the other stays awake. But why? Sleep is not just about rest. While you sleep, your brain is astonishingly active. It cycles through phases: light sleep, deep sleep, and REM sleep, where vivid dreams occur. During these cycles, your brain consolidates memories, processes emotions, repairs tissue, and clears out waste via the glymphatic system, like a dishwasher for your mind. One of the most fascinating discoveries came from studies at the University of Rochester, which showed that during sleep, cerebrospinal fluid washes over the brain, flushing away neurotoxins, including beta amyloid, the substance associated with Alzheimer's. In essence, sleep is like nightly maintenance. You can skip 1 or 2 nights and survive, just like skipping oil changes won't immediately destroy a car. But over time, the damage becomes irreversible. And evolution tells us something crucial. Despite the obvious dangers of lying still and unconscious, no species has managed to evolve past the need to sleep. That's how essential it is. Now, let's remove sleep from the equation. The first 24 hours might feel manageable, similar to pulling an all-nighter. Your coordination suffers, your memory starts to falter, and your judgment becomes cloudy. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control compares 24 hours of wakefulness to having a blood alcohol content of 0.10%, which is above the legal driving limit in most countries. At 36 hours, your brain starts to malfunction. Decision-making deteriorates further. You may feel emotional, restless, or detached from your surroundings. Your body's circadian rhythm, your internal clock, starts to rebel, causing confusion, chills, and digestive issues. By 48 hours, your body enters a crisis mode. Cortisol levels spike. Dopamine levels drop. Your immune system becomes impaired, making you more vulnerable to infections. Vision becomes blurry. You may begin to experience microsleeps, brief moments where your brain simply shuts off, even if your eyes remain open. By 72 hours, you've entered dangerous territory. Most people begin hallucinating. In one study by Dr. Dement at Stanford, participants reported hearing phantom sounds, seeing static patterns shift into insects, and even forgetting their own names for brief moments. A famous case involved radio DJ Peter Tripp in 1959, who stayed awake for 201 hours for a publicity stunt. By the end, he was paranoid, thought people were trying to poison him, and began having full conversations with people who didn't exist. Your brain begins to lose its grip on reality, and it only gets worse from here. So what happens if you never sleep again? Long-term sleep deprivation is not just exhausting, it's devastating. Your body starts breaking down, system by system. In a state of chronic sleep deprivation, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for logic and planning, goes offline. Instead, your amygdala, responsible for fear and anger, takes over. This is why sleep-deprived people become irrational, aggressive, or emotionally unstable. Studies show that after several days without sleep, the brain starts to exhibit patterns similar to schizophrenia. You begin to lose the ability to differentiate between reality and imagination. And eventually, you may experience false awakenings, convincing yourself you've slept, even when you haven't. In animal studies, rats deprived of sleep began losing body mass and developed open sores, despite eating more. Within 2 to 3 weeks, they died. Then there's fatal familial insomnia, FFI, a rare inherited disorder caused by a prion mutation. Those affected gradually lose the ability to sleep at all. No drug can induce rest. Their nervous system collapses. They lose motor control, speech, memory, and die within months. It's one of the most terrifying diseases known to medicine. So while your body might limp along without sleep for a few days, beyond that, it begins to unravel in ways we still don't fully understand. Now let's get futuristic. What if technology could free us from sleep? In theory, it sounds perfect. Artificial sleep, dream simulation, or brain augmentation to handle memory consolidation without rest. Military research has explored compounds, like modafinil and armodafinil, which enhance alertness without causing the crash of traditional stimulants. Pilots using modafinil in simulations showed nearly full performance for 40-plus hours. But after 72 hours, cognitive impairment still set in. DARPA has funded experimental studies into magnetic brain stimulation, zapping the frontal lobe with low currents to temporarily restore alertness. Some researchers have speculated about genetic editing, specifically the DEC2 mutation, which allows rare individuals to function with only 4 hours of sleep. But there's a catch. None of these technologies replicate the most essential function of sleep: emotional and neurological processing. No pill can replace dreaming. No headset can simulate the glymphatic cleansing of the brain. We might eventually extend wakefulness, but eliminating sleep entirely? That's still science fiction. And it might never be possible without severe trade-offs to our mental health and humanity. Now imagine someone who chooses not to sleep, not because of technology or mutation, but out of desire to become superhuman. At first, it works. They gain hours. They write books, compose music, master skills. But slowly, their identity unravels. Without sleep, your brain can't emotionally regulate. You stop processing joy, sadness, and grief. Relationships crumble. Anxiety turns into paranoia. Your mind becomes a storm with no center. Then come the hallucinations. Not just visual noise, but deep, haunting delusions. A woman in one study, after 5 days without sleep, began to believe she was a character in a novel. Another man was convinced he was dead and stuck in a dream. You begin to misremember real events, blur the boundaries between imagination and memory, and your subconscious starts leaking into waking life. You start dreaming while awake. Eventually, you lose track of time. One man in a sleep experiment described days as a gray fog with no beginning or end. He forgot how old he was. He couldn't recall what season it was. Without sleep, you don't just lose energy, you lose yourself. So, what if you never slept again? You'd gain time, yes, but you'd lose everything that makes you you. Memory, creativity, joy, love, purpose. Without sleep, the mind becomes untethered, adrift in a sea of static and noise. As neuroscientist Matthew Walker put it, sleep is the single most effective thing we can do to reset our brain and body health each day. So next time you're tempted to push through the night, remember, you're not saving time, you're borrowing it from your future self. If you found this video fascinating, give it a like and hit that subscribe button. Tell us in the comments, what's the longest you've ever stayed awake and what happened? And if you remember, share your weirdest dream too. Because sometimes, what happens when we sleep is even stranger than what happens when we don't.